Welcome to the regular meeting of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. The meeting will be followed by a briefing session. We will begin our meeting with an invocation from Sally Brewer, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, by remote. Ms. Brewer, you may begin. And you may stand for the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mrs. Brewer,
You're okay. Go right ahead.
Our dear kind Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this day. We're thankful for the opportunity that we have to meet together. Please bless those gathered here with wisdom, knowledge, and inspiration as they discuss and make decisions. Help them to have open minds and hearts. Please bless the leaders of our city and our nation. Bless the members of our city with kindness, acceptance, and joy. We are grateful for all thy gifts. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Fleming Elamine with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have quite a bit of work ahead of us today, Commissioners. I might point out that our briefing session, it's hard to believe, will be for the June 3rd meeting of the board. Right now, I'm going to give a telephone number for those who would like to participate in the public session of our meeting. That's where you have the opportunity to give us a call, and I'll give you the phone number in just a second. But if you have an idea, if you have thoughts regarding the problems, needs, and interests of Forsyth County in your neighborhood or in the county or wherever, we're going to give you a telephone number, and in just a few moments, probably I'd say in the neighborhood of 7 or 8 minutes, we will give you the opportunity to talk during this broadcast by telephone. Our clerk to the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners, Ashley Sloop, will answer the phone, and she will put you on hold until the public session begins. Now, I'll repeat the number twice. The number for the public session is 336-422-1200. 336-422-1200. And a reminder, you'll be placed on hold until the public session begins. But right now, Dr. Christopher Old of Wake Forest Baptist Health is going to give us a COVID-19 update. And Dr. Old, you may begin.
Hello. I have a bit of an echo. I'm sorry. Hang on a minute.
You look good.
Thank you. I apologize for the echo. I'm going to have to turn my audio down. So where we're sitting right now in the county is with a general slow declining cases that have been occurring since a small wavelet passed us in April. It's while declining, it's not declining quickly, and it kind of interestingly, our hospital numbers haven't budged in the last 2 months, and we haven't really had a decline in those numbers, some of which may be because some of our outlying counties around us, their case rates are about twice as high as ours right now. And obviously we get people from the region rather than just from Forsyth County. I anticipate that this trend will continue, but there are some variables that could influence. One of which is that the most predominant strain of virus circulating right now for COVID in our area is the B117 UK variant, which is a little bit more transmissible. And then the other variable is the fact that society has largely abandoned masking. And there is still at least half of Forsyth County who has not received 2 doses of vaccine. So if your glass is half empty, that doesn't sound so good, but if your glass is a half full person, then having half the county seems pretty good. The mask guidance that came about from the CDC is interesting. Part of it is something to celebrate. The fact that vaccines are good enough that vaccinated people really don't need to wear a mask anymore, and that they're not at risk of getting sick for COVID, with rare exceptions, and they're even less likely to be hospitalized or die if they get COVID if they've been vaccinated. Vaccine breakthroughs do occur, however, and we have been seeing them here in our county from time to time, but I don't know of any hospitalized patients in Forsyth County, at least at our medical center, in a vaccinated person. I know Guilford's had 1 or 2. The confusion from the masking guidance, I won't go into a lot of detail on it, but basically it's kind of like when you're talking to your kids. If your 15-year-old says, "Hey, Mom, Dad, can I go to the party?" and you say, "Well, I don't know," and then they say, "Well, can I go to the party?" and then you say, "Yeah, you can go to the party, but you need to be home by 10 o'clock. You need to call me every hour, and here's the things that you aren't allowed to do. And if you do all that, then you can go to the party." That's the if. Then you can go. So what is the kid? What does the kid hear? He hears, "Hey, you can go to the party." He doesn't hear any of the rest of that stuff. And as a society, that's kind of what's happened to us. So the CDC says that if you've been vaccinated, you can really resume normal activities indoors without distancing and without wearing a mask. What did our society hear? Hey, you don't need to wear a mask anymore. They didn't hear the if you've been vaccinated part. So it kind of comes down to if you trust the vaccine, which I do. I trust the vaccine a lot. And if you trust people to do what they're supposed to do, and if they're not vaccinated, they still need to be wearing a mask. Unfortunately, I've been in the business of public health long enough to know that a lot of times you can't trust people. And so what's happening already and what's going to happen when mask mandates, either locally or regionally or for a workplace or for a church or so on and so forth, go away, no one's going to be masking. And what's going to happen is, paradoxically, it's going to increase the risk for certain groups of people. One of those groups of people would be our immunocompromised people, people who've had transplants, people who have cancer under chemotherapy and such. They don't respond to vaccines so well. So even if they're vaccinated, they're going to be at higher risk with large groups of unvaccinated people not wearing masks. The other group of people are our kids under the age of 12. They don't have the luxury of deciding whether to get vaccinated because there's no vaccine available to them yet. 12 and above, they can, but not under 12. And so it's summertime, and kids like to do things, and they're out of school, and they want to have some activities. They want to go to museums. They want to take part in library activities and catch up on some literacy that they may have lost out on with the confusion in the school year. And then lastly are going to be our marginalized populations, who are racially or ethnically in minorities, people who don't have as much access to health care, people who are vaccine hesitant and in their mind for good reasons, and they won't have been vaccinated, but yet they still have to access our community services, our county services. They still might have to go to the courthouse and things like that. So I think we need to keep all of that in mind when we're looking at how to respond to the CDC's change in their mask guidance. And I do think that there will be increases in cases in cohorts or clusters of unvaccinated people, particularly in the people going and visiting some of those higher risk areas that aren't masking anymore, such as fitness centers, full seating indoor dining, so on and so forth. So I think, you know, you'll see the county's plan as to do with masking. We tried the best we could to try to look out for our vulnerable populations and our vulnerable citizens. But as any compromise, there are going to be some holes in it, and particularly I'm worried about our racially and ethnically minority populations that aren't as vaccinated, but still rely on our governmental services, and we'll be taking some risk that basically is going to be about the same as it was before the vaccines came around, at least for them as individuals. So if there are any questions, I can open it up, or we can take them at the end, or let Joshua Swift talk a little bit first. Any of the above is fine.
Commissioners, any questions for Dr. Ohl? You did an excellent job. The commissioners don't have a question. You laid it out perfectly. Thank you.
They've probably heard my briefing on this before.
Well, that was just terrific. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Dr. Christopher Old, Wake Forest Baptist Health, with a COVID-19 update. Now we'll move into our regular agenda today. The first item on the agenda is a public hearing in connection with the financing of the Forsyth County Courthouse facility, KALEIDEUM, and airport projects, and the financing and refinancing of the current debt obligations. Ashley Sloop, Clerk to the County Commissioners, have you received any comments in favor or in opposition to these requests?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Then I will declare the public hearing closed. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Fleming Elamine. I'll second the motion. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing to consider the expenditure of county general funds for an economic development project and authorizing execution of an agreement with ARDAGH Metal Beverage Incorporated. Ashley Sloop, Clerk to the Commissioners, have you received any comments in favor or in opposition to this request?
Mr. Chairman, we received one comment in favor of this resolution from Joshua Marcus, and a copy of that comment has been placed at all of your seats.
Thank you. Motion to approve or disapprove?
I can make a motion that we approve the incentive package for the King Company.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Don Martin.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fleming Elamine. Discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Third item on the agenda, a public hearing on the zoning petition of Jimmy Lee Barrow, zoning docket F1600, and set forth in agenda item 3. The first speaker on this item will be Aaron King, Planning and Development Services Director in Forsyth County. Mr. King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me grab this presentation and hopefully get this on the screen.
We're watching you live and in living color as you grab something.
Okay, are you able to see that?
Yes, sir. Beautifully.
Okay, well, great. So, good afternoon, Chairman Plyler and Commissioners. This is zoning case F1600, and this is a request to rezone a little over 33 acres on the east side of Reedsville Road, west of Flat Rock Road, And the request is general use rezoning from agricultural zoning in RS20 to RS30. So you can see the location map there with the subject property shown in yellow. And again, this is on the east side of Reedsville Road and the west side of Old Flat Rock Road. You can see the southern portion of the site is zoned RS20. That's just a small portion. The balance of the site is zoned agricultural, and you can see there's a variety of zoning districts in this area, RS20 and RS30 to the north. A lot of that is agricultural zoning. Here's the aerial image of the subject property outlined in yellow. You can see it's primarily undeveloped at this point. And some images taken out on the site. This is looking into the site from Reedsville Road. And this is looking into the site from Old Flat Rock. This is looking on Old Flat Rock Road. The site is to the left. This is an image of the area plan, the Walkertown area plan update, which recommends the site for large lot residential. So in summary, the site is located in a transitional area with a mixture of zoning of RS20 and AG zone properties. The estimated trip generation for the proposed and existing zonings is pretty comparable. The proposed zoning would allow about 6 more homes if it were developed for residential purposes. And the site does have access to public water and extensive road frontage. This request was heard by the Planning Board at their April 8th public hearing. There were 5 speakers in support and 1 in opposition. That speaker mentioned concerns about access to Reedsville Road, and the Planning Board voted 8-0 to recommend approval of this request. And I'm glad to answer any questions if there are any.
Questions for Mr. King on item F-1600?
I'll just say one thing to confirm. We received several comments about this particular request, one of which suggested that the public water was not being planned. I see it is in access, and I did in fact send an email to the developer, which he did reply that he is going to provide public water, and I just want to make sure that is an understanding, that it'll be public water and not wells.
So, Commissioner Martin, keep in mind this is a general use request, and so you don't have a site plan with this, and you don't have any conditions, and you can't place conditions upon a general use request. As I stated, and as a developer confirmed, there is public water in Reedsville Road, and I would certainly believe that would be, the method would be to provide public water into this site. However, we don't have a condition in front of you that absolutely requires that, so I want to make sure that's clear as this is a general use request.
I got it, thank you.
Additional comments or questions? Ashley Sloop, Clerk to the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. Have you received any comments in favor or in opposition to this request?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we received 3 comments in favor and 3 comments against F-1600.
Thank you very much. Following the new requirements of Session Law 2020-3, the board will continue to receive public comments on this matter until 2 p.m., May 21st, 2021. If you wish to submit a comment, please call 336-703-2020 for directions. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing on the zoning petition of David G. Williams, zoning docket F1601, and set forth in agenda item number 4. Aaron King.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to get this one pulled up for you.
Looking good.
Okay, hopefully everybody can see that. All right, this is zoning case F1601, and this is for about just under 20 acres on the south side of STYERS Ferry Road between STYERS Ferry Trail and STYERS Crossing Lane. And this is a special use rezoning from RS40 to NOS. That's neighborhood office special use zoning, and you can see the uses requested there listed on your screen. You can see here the subject property shown in yellow, as I mentioned, on the south side of STYERS Ferry Road. This is kind of just north of Center Grove Church Road out in the western part of the county. You can see it is currently zoned RS40. There's some RS30 to the west, some AG zoning in the area as well. And you can see here the aerial image showing the subject property primarily undeveloped with the exception of a structure located in the southern portion of the site. These are some images taken on site. This is looking into the subject property. And this is Styers Ferry Road, the site week to the left in this image. And then this is looking across Styers Ferry Road from the site. Property is located within the Clemens Comprehensive Plan, which does recommend rural preservation for this area. And this is the site plan submitted with this request, so obviously it's oriented a little differently than the previous images, with Styers Ferry to your right, so north would be to the right in this image. You can see not a lot of development proposed here, really just formalizing the access drive which runs down the western edge of the property. The proposal here is to make use of the existing home and convert that into an office use. So some additional parking spaces will be provided down by the building itself. But other than that, no grading is proposed, so the site would remain largely preserved in its existing vegetation. So in summary, the approval could establish a precedent for similar rezonings in the area, and as I mentioned, it's not entirely consistent with the Clemens comprehensive plan, and Clemens also raised concerns as well. The proposed site plan does keep the majority of the site intact, as I mentioned, and only proposes minimal modifications, and that actually does help to preserve the rural character of the site and the area. This request was heard by the Planning Board at their April 8th public hearing, and there were 5 speakers in support and no speakers in opposition. The Planning Board voted 6-2 to recommend approval of this request, and I'm glad to answer any questions if there are any.
Questions or comments for Aaron King?
Aaron, other than the inconsistency with the Clemens area, their growth plan, how does Clemens articulate their concerns, particularly when this is basically preserving the rural nature of the land, and it is converting the house, I realize, to a commercial kind of use. But so how do they articulate their concerns?
Commissioner Martin, I think it's really more objection to the non-residential zoning that is being proposed there, and perhaps the precedent that it sets. I do think you're entirely right, and this is probably one of the rare instances where actually an upzoning to a higher district and placing that property under the restrictions of a special use plan actually does work to further the goals of what's being contemplated. As I mentioned, their plan does call for sort of rural preservation, and basically this site plan, it actually does a pretty good job of doing exactly that. It keeps the majority of that site in vegetation and actually works to preserve the character. So I think it's probably more objection to the non-residential zoning itself.
Thank you.
Additional comments or questions? Ashley Sloop, Clerk to the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. Have you received any comments in favor of or in opposition to this matter?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. Following the requirements of Session Law 2020-3, the board will continue to receive public comment on this matter until 2 p.m., May 21st, 2021. And if you wish to submit such a comment, please call this number, 336-703-2020. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing on a zoning petition of Tammy Weevil and Timothy Weevil, zoning docket number 1602, as set forth in agenda item number 5. Aaron King, you got this one too.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Fowler. Hope everybody can see that one as well.
Yes, sir.
So this request is zoning case F1602, and the request is for 10 acres located on the southeastern quadrant of I-74 and High Point Road. And what's before you is a special use rezoning from agricultural zoning to limited industrial special use zoning, and also attached to this is a request for a special intense development allocation. You can see the proposed uses there on your screen. Here's the location map for the subject property. Again, just 10 acres there at that southeastern quadrant. You can see it's shown in yellow. On the east side of High Point Road, you can see it's primarily zoned agricultural. Just across High Point Road, you've got the Martin Marietta quarry there with a lot of industrial zoning there to the west. Here is an aerial image of the subject property outlined in yellow. You can see it's primarily undeveloped, and again, you can see the quarrying activities taking taking place across High Point Road, agricultural activities to the east of this site. Some site photos. This is on High Point Road. The site will be to the left in this image. And this is looking into the subject property. Here's an image from the Southeast Forsyth County Update Area Plan, and the recommended land use there is large lot residential. It does fall within a larger area. It's shown as a special land use condition that could be contemplated for business park development should public sewer ever be brought to this area. It is currently not available. Here's an image of the proposed site plan. So High Point Road would be to the left there in this image, I-74 to the north there. So to walk you through this, one access point in the far southern portion of the property on the High Point Road, parking in the front, and a proposed 15,000 square foot building shown in purple with an additional opportunity for expansion to the north. And again, this is for a building contractor use, so some storage area that would be fenced in and gravel that kind of wraps around to the east of this site. Stormwater control devices on the far eastern portion of the site. So in summary, the industrial activity, there is industrial activity located across the street, as I mentioned. The area plan doesn't currently support the industrial use at this time, and the request does not meet all their criteria for SIDA. The site's location does not preclude industrial park development if sewer is provided, given that it's at the far northern edge of that quadrant, and it would allow for additional business development. As the commissioners are considering the SIDA, the Special Intense Development Allocation, there are findings that you need to consider as making that decision, and these are laid out in the UDO. I won't read these verbatim. I will hit these kind of a glancing blow. You can see the 5 of them listed there. And again, it speaks to whether or not the project is in conformance with the Comprehensive Plan Legacy 2030, that the land use and site design are compatible with the area it's located, that there's a significant economic benefit to the community in terms of jobs and tax base, the request is not a threat to the environment, especially water quality, and that the site has good transportation access. The request was heard by the Planning Board at their April 8th public hearing. There were 3 speakers in support and 2 in opposition, and I think the opposition was primarily concerned about an access easement on the subject property that served their property, and you may have received some additional correspondence on that as well. The Planning Board voted 5-3 to recommend approval of the rezoning request and the SIDA, and I'm glad to answer any questions if there are any.
Mr. King, the term glancing blow worked beautifully for you. Any questions or comments for Aaron King?
I may ask just one question about the 3 planning zoning members who voted against this. Was their opposition somehow or other related to the easement, the access easement on that property, or something else?
Commissioner Martin, I think I can speak for them. It was a very good discussion by the planning board members, and I think some of the opposition to this request was, thinking about the area plan's recommendations, it stated that this could be an opportunity for business park development in the future. And if we're approving this now, are we jeopardizing the ability for some potential business park development in the future? So it was really a discussion about sort of short-term versus long-term opportunities there. And I think those 3 members that voted against were really maybe looking at that business park opportunity down the road. I think that's where their opposition came from.
Okay, thank you.
Additional comments or questions? Ashley Sloop, Clerk to the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners, have you received any comments in favor or in opposition to this matter?
Mr. Chairman, we received 1 comment from Terry Smith.
Thank you. Following the new requirements of Session Law 2020-3, the board will continue to receive public comment on this matter until 2 p.m., May 21st, 2021. If you wish to make a comment, the number to call is 336-703-2020 for directions. Kelly Bennett is next up. Aaron is going to take a rest. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing on Public Art 2020-030 of the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Plan. Kelly Bennett from the Planning and Services Department. This sounds like an interesting thing to talk about.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Just want to make sure you can see the presentation.
Yes,
for you.
sir. Looks good.
Okay, very good. Public Art Plan was facilitated by the City County Public Art Commission. This is the group that's appointed by the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners and the City Council to make decisions on public art matters. It sets the agenda for the next 10 years of city and county public art investments. It has 5 goals, and it includes project recommendations, which are locations and ideas for public art projects. You've probably heard the case for public art. It just defines a sense of place and creates pride in the community. It also attracts visitors, increases foot traffic in downtowns, and the length of time and money visitors spend in an area. And investment in public art is also investment in local jobs. Beyond artists, you also have a number of people needed to install sculptures and the artwork, setting down foundations and things like that. This is a quick look at some of our peer cities' public art expenditures. You can see the budget that they spend, the number of projects they undertake a year, and also something called Percent for Art, which is a funding mechanism for public art that goes along with capital expenditures. A number of communities will reserve 1% of capital expenditures, for things like parks and recreation centers, libraries, investments like that to bring public art into those facilities. And that leads us into the first goal of the plan, which is to include public art in future city and county investments, such as parks, libraries, recreation centers, greenways, and streetscape improvements. And that's basically a recommendation to consider a Percent for Art ordinance. For the county, it would be a 1/10 of 1% ordinance that the plan recommends, given the county's large outlays, such as the county courthouse for public art. It would be still a substantial amount of money for public art for that facility, but it wouldn't be, too much. Goal number 2 is to increase public art funding for projects at existing parks, greenways, libraries, municipal buildings, downtown, Winston-Salem, and in different neighborhoods. Goal 3 is to help foster a local public art economy that develops local artists, fabricators, and other related businesses. Goal 4 is to raise community awareness of the city-county public art program. And Goal 5 is to care for and manage our growing public art collection. Public art projects for the next decade. At current staffing and pre-coronavirus funding levels, the Commission is likely to complete about 12 to 15 public art projects over the next 10 years, and with recommended larger budget allocations and Percent for Art ordinances, that could easily top 25 to 30 projects a year. And the plan goes out to recommend places for public art, including downtown, parks and greenways, community gateways. Could highlight significant people, go in public facilities, and be special projects such as bus shelters, things like that. For the timeline, this plan, brainstorming and visioning, began in 2018 by the Public Art Commission. And then in April and May 2019, the Commission held 3 in-person public input meetings and an online survey that received hundreds of responses. And then in July and August of 2020, the draft plan was presented at seven public input meetings, a couple in person and some online. And the Public Art Commission recommended plan adoption in October of 2020, and the Winston-Salem City Council adopted the Public Art Plan in April 2021. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions or comments for Kelly Bennett? Excellent report, Mr. Bennett. Thank you very much, sir. Ashley Sloop,
Thank you.
Clerk to the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. Any comments in favor of or in opposition to this particular matter?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Following the new requirements of Session Law 2020-3, the board will continue to receive comments on this matter until 2 p.m., May 21st, 2021. And if you wish to have a comment or call right now, the number is 336-703-2020. Now we come to the public session of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. It's the seventh item on the agenda, and this is where we give people an opportunity to call us. We gave the number earlier and explain to us what you think are the problems, needs, or interests related to the county or any other matter for that matter. Ashley Sloop, do we have any calls?
Mr. Chairman, we have 3 callers.
Oh, you're on the ball. You're ready to go. Yes, ma'am.
You are now available. Thank you.
Thank you for calling the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners Public Session Line. This session is for comments only, and questions cannot be answered. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, Randon Pender, 5621 Novak Street, Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Thank you. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each, and a 30-second warning will be given. You may begin.
Randon Pender, 5621 Novak Street, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Good afternoon, Chairman Dave Plyler, Vice Chair Don Martin, and the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. I am calling in reference to the executive order by President, I'm getting feedback, by President Joe Biden, 13985. And I would like to read a portion of it to you for the record. The equal opportunity is the bedrock of American democracy, and our diversity is one of our country's greatest strengths. But too many of American dream remains out of reach, entrenched by disparities in our laws and public policies and in our public and private institutions, have often denied that equal opportunity to individuals and communities. Our country faces converging economic health and climate crisis and have exposed and exacerbated inequities, while a historic movement of justice has highlighted the unbearable human cost of systemic racism. Our nation deserves an ambitious whole government equity agenda that matches the scale of the opportunities and challenges that it faces. I'll scroll down to Section 8. And, all right, Section 8. The areas that are the focus areas for our community is food insecurity, employment assistance, mental health services, child care and youth services, education support, rental and utility assistance, mortgage assistance, economic development, public health, transportation, PPE, and cleaning supplies and health care. The Winston-Salem Black Chamber is in conversation with organizations that provide such services, and we will be in contact with the Board of Commissioners to continue this conversation to determine what we're going to ask for concerning the $74 million allotted to Forsyth County. Thank you for your time. You are now available. Thank you.
Thank you for calling the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners Public Session Line. This session is for comments only, and questions cannot be answered. Please state your name and address for the record.
James Grace, 500 Gaither Road, 27101, Winston-Salem.
Thank you. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each, and a 30-second warning will be given. You may begin.
All right, hello, my name is James Grace. I am board chair of the National Community Development Corporation, which is headquartered here in Winston-Salem. And we have 3 active projects that we would like funding and assistance with. And we think they all fit into the domain of what the American Rescue Plan was intended. The first one is the housing plan called the Innovative Affordable Housing Plan, which is comprised of SIP town construction, which if you know anything about SIP towns, they are both energy efficient and twice as strong as two-to-four construction. And because we have such a housing crisis in Winston-Salem and Forsyth County, this would be a dynamic plan to institute, which would also, if we were filling our oaths to have our own plant here in Winston-Salem, which would include some investment dollars that I'm sure our private sector could meet. The other is the plan for Kings and Lawrence to make it a mixed-use project centered around some economic development activity. There could be housing, ample space for particularly having some youth programs. And the third is a training program that would also be started to train people to build these sit-down houses in conjunction with Forsyth Tech or Goodwill. The industry now, as far as it stands, I mean, we're looking for industry in North Carolina and particularly here in Winston. And this structural insulated panels is something we definitely need to take a look at for 2 reasons: for economic development purposes and to solve our crisis of housing long term. Thank you.
You are now available. Thank you.
Thank you for calling the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners public session line. This session is for comments only, and questions cannot be answered. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Lafayette Jones, and I am a managing partner of the SMSI Healthy Living Solutions Companies and publisher of Urban Call magazine. I am also one of the proud founders of the Golden Community Development Corporation. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to brief you on an exciting project that the Golden Community Development Corporation, a separate, independent, nonprofit organization, is making during its 22nd year anniversary. Earlier in May 2021, our organization made a full-price $3.5 million offer to purchase the historic church sanctuary built in 1897, and which is also in the National Historic Register. The property was placed in the market approximately 2 years ago, and we are proposing that the former church building surrounding land area, a total of 1.7 acres, be rehab and new construction to build a performing and cultural arts center. We would anticipate that this would be completely built, rehabbed, and new construction by 2024. In addition to the standalone performing arts center, we think this would create a tremendous energy in our area. And really, we propose that it be the home of the National Black Theater Festival that was founded many years ago by Maya Angelou and Larry Leon Hamlin. We also think that it would fit the area's theme, the city, if you will, of Winston-Salem, of innovation and art And we think more than 50,000 people are drawn to the market during the performances of the National Black Theater. We have built more than, we originally purchased 15 acres of land in historic Winston-Salem. We built the True Lion Center, and we produced more than 300 units of housing, and built the Nursery Center, and also 727 North. So we have a track record of doing what we say.
You have 20 seconds, sir.
We anticipate that the county will be receiving some $74 million, and we are making application for approximately $10 million of those funds to help us develop a large-scale execution. You can reach me at 336-414-2331 if you have questions. I'm Lafayette Jones.
Well, I would say the last two of the people who talked on the public session made suggestions and ideas, and if you want to go a little further with it, you can call our county manager, Dudley Watts, who is awaiting your call whenever you have the opportunity. The number is 703-2020, and I would also suggest you call Chase Law. That's C-H-A-S-E is her first name, Law is her last name, L-A-W. She's the executive director of the Winston-Salem Arts Council, and you can reach her at the Arts Council. Thank you, Ashley Sloop, for a job well done. Good public session. And now to go further into the agenda, our county manager, Dudley Watts.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, board members and staff and guests. We do have some business items for consideration this afternoon. We have reviewed these in briefing sessions and hopefully have answered any questions that you might have, so I'll dive into the agenda. Agenda item 8 is an amendment to the fiscal year 2021 budget ordinance that increases revenues and appropriations for the Forsyth County Department of Public Health for epidemiology communicable disease branch funding from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. This will provide the county additional COVID-related funding of $3,061,835.
Questions or comments? Motion to approve by Commissioner Ted Kaplan.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Tanya McDaniel and Fleming Elamine. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Agenda item 9 is an amendment to the State Public School Building Capital Fund Grant Project Ordinance. It closes the 2013 and 2015 school bond issues arising from the 2006 school construction bonds. Obviously, this will help from an accounting perspective as we close out the year, and it does decrease revenue and appropriations by $100,000.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Ted Kaplan.
Second.
Second by Commissioners Don Martin and Fleming Elamine. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Agenda item 10 is a resolution ratifying and authorizing a joint applications by Forsyth County and the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools for $4,210,884 from the Public School Building Capital Fund, which is essentially the Education Lottery Fund, to retire a portion of the county's school bond indebtedness. You've got the associated grant project ordinance.
Questions or comments?
Move approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Don Martin.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fleming Elamine. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item 11 is a resolution changing the name of the Coronavirus Relief Fund Special Revenue Fund to the Pandemic Response Special Revenue Fund. Essentially, that name change will allow us to use the same accounting structure to account for the ARPA funds that have been talked about already in this meeting. The item B of this is an amendment to the fund to receive the American Rescue Plan Act funding in the amount of $74,256,322.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Tanya McDaniel.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fleming Elamine. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Agenda item 12 is a resolution approving an installment financing contract and providing for the financing and refinancing of certain projects as set forth in related matters. It's a not to exceed $160 million, and this will be for the courthouse project, for the KALEIDEUM Museum project, the airport projects, and then a refunding. And just in the meetings we've had kind of prior to this meeting, we will be reducing that by the $11 million. So anyway, that's it.
Questions or comments?
Vote to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Fleming Elamine. Second by Commissioner Ted Kaplan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Agenda item 13 is a resolution approving the distribution of real property plan and authorizing the county manager to submit such plan to the Secretary of North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services to continue the process of disengaging from Cardinal Innovations Healthcare and realigning with Partners Behavioral Health Management.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Fleming Elamine.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Tanya McDaniel and Ted Kaplan. All in favor,
Can I
say
have
aye.
a little
Yes, I'm
discussion
sorry.
on that one?
Go right ahead, sir.
I just like to make a comment, and I want to ask Chantel about two questions.
All right, sir.
Basically, the last time we discussed this, I kind of committed I'd read about 15 or 20 of those comments. And I actually said, I committed then and to myself that I would read all of them at one sitting. And I did that, and it took a good while to do that, but it was a good way to get a real flavor for the comments. And I really want to thank the people who submitted them, because clearly writing comments in public, venues is not always easy for people to do, even who have strong feelings. But there were actually 131 of those comments. Some were people just put their name and address and really didn't put a comment. There were a few of those. But I'm not going to try to a long speech to summarize them, other than to say that clearly certainly Cardinal services have worked well for some people, no doubt about it. They've worked well, and I am so happy about that. For other families and consumers, it's not worked as well, and there was passion on both sides of that. But if there was a common denominator, I really think it was that, that folks, by and large, really the navigator for the constituent services basically is this case manager, case worker, that position. And there were several names, and clearly there's great satisfaction with most of those, and which is good. And I'm really assuming that this motion were to pass, and that Secretary Cohen would in fact approve our disengagement request. I'm really curious about what maybe Chantel could comment on the likelihood that some of these key navigator folks could be hired or would be or might be. I mean, obviously there's no commitment, but just kind of to reflect on those people, remaining in place. That would really solve a lot, I think, of the transition problem. So I was just going to ask her maybe to comment on that.
Sure. Thank you, Vice Chair Martin. There were a lot of comments about the care coordinator specifically for the IDD population, and that is a top priority for staff as well as partners. We do anticipate that a lot of care coordinators through this transition will need a job and will look to possibly transition to partners. Certainly, there's no guarantee, but partners does offer competitive pay and benefits package. They are also part of the state retirement plan, which may be enticing to some of their staff. And it's my understanding Cardinal is not part of the state retirement plan. And Partners has hired previous Cardinal employees in the past that has nothing to do with disengagement. Right now, Partners and Cardinal are working collaboratively together to transition Union and Cabarrus counties. And certainly, the hope is that individuals would transition over to Partners if they are employees in good standing. Certainly, probably not all of them may not be, but in the public comments, there were about 3 people's names that came out very prominently. And so the hope would be that good care coordinators would be interested in transitioning to Partners. When Rutherford County transitioned from VIA to Partners, Partners was able to hire all but one of their care coordinators. So all I would say is certainly there's no guarantees, but it is a top priority for Partners and county staff to hope that there would be a smooth transition.
Thanks. And Chantel, I wanted to ask one other question particularly, because a lot of folks that wrote comments, they've been involved in this arena and services for 20 years, some of them, and more. And a lot of them talked about the number of transitions. And that was obviously a theme in this whole issue, were transitions. And they mentioned, and I remember particularly, I've been through the transition because I was on the CenterPoint board at that time when basically Cardinal took over CenterPoint. And this is different than that. If this were to happen, this is not a takeover. It's to existing, it's kind of changing sort of LME MCOs. And could you talk a little bit about the difference in that and how that might be, this transition should not be as stark as the CenterPoint Cardinal transition?
Sure. So this is definitely a very different type of transition. When CenterPoint merged with Cardinal, they ceased operation and existence entirely. So there was just, it's almost like starting from scratch. And so that created a different types of challenges. In this Cardinal to Partners transition, all providers in good standing with the state would have an expedited process to continue serving our residents. The provider rates would remain intact, and if partners paid, providers more, they would honor their higher rate. Consumers would automatically be enrolled with partners, and their current service authorizations would be honored. And so it really should be, it's not as much back office operations type things that had to occur with the CenterPoint Cardinal transition. And then the final thing I would say is that, I think Forsyth County would also benefit from the transition that's currently occurring with Union and Cabarrus. If there are any hiccups along the way or lessons learned along the way, we would be transitioning after them. And so hopefully our transition would even be a smoother process.
Thanks a lot. And I just got one last, just a suggestion. When I finished reading those comments, I thought, this is the interest, because we have the contact information. There were a few that were anonymous, a few just identified themselves by a position. But it'd be pretty easy after, I was thinking that assuming this were to be approved by the Secretary Cohen, then whenever we got started in that transition time, it'd be nice if we could use that group as kind of a follow-up and ask them, maybe after 3 months, maybe after 6 months, how things are going as a part of our oversight and sort of ongoing evaluation of the partners' new partnership, and to see how many of these feared problems were occurring, because we are going to be dealing with the Medicaid standard health plan stuff could transition on July 1. How much conflict, if you will, does that create additionally? So maybe that'd be a group of these are people that took time to communicate with us, and maybe using them as an evaluation sounding board in a transition would be good diligence on our part.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea. We would be certainly open to doing that and could figure out a process for implementing that after transition. That'd be great.
Additional comments or questions? Constructive comments, Commissioner Martin. All in favor of the resolution, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
All right. Agenda item 14 is a resolution approving the continuity of services plan and authorizing the county manager to submit such plan to the Secretary of North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services to continue the process of disengaging from Cardinal Innovations Healthcare and realigning with Partners Behavioral Health Management. There's actually a memo at your place that was provided by Deputy Manager Robinson, just really with the awareness that this is sort of the last step. You want to speak to that, Chantel, perhaps?
Sure. So the memo really is just a brief update of where we are with Cardinal and next steps. And I just wanted to ensure that the board was clear that if you approve these, last two agenda items, this is the final step for our Board of County Commissioners and would essentially direct staff to submit our formal packet to Secretary Cohen. We would have to wait until our public comments are finished being published on our website. It has to stay up there for 30 days. But our anticipated date would be to send her the packet by June 15th. But I just wanted you all to be clear that this action would direct us to continue the process.
A motion to approve by Commissioner Ted Kaplan.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fleming Elamine. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Very Very good. Item 15 is a resolution by Forsyth County approving the memorandum of agreement between the state of North Carolina and the local governments on proceeds related to the settlement of opioid litigation. I do understand there was a call statewide today. Gordon, did you have any comments on this one?
No, we've had many, many calls statewide. This is just the, as we've discussed, the memorandum of agreement, which would allocate any funds from an opioid settlement among the various counties and a few cities across North Carolina. I'm happy to discuss it in as much detail as you'd like, but very, very briefly, what this does is the money that comes in from a settlement, 15% will go to the state, to the General Assembly, to be distributed for opioid uses, and the other 85% would go to the counties and a few municipalities. This is in contrast to most any other state in the country. The highest any other state has for localities is 42%. So this is a real key advantage for North Carolina. The uses are limited to addressing opioids, and those are specifically set forth in the agreement. The protections are both on the front end, that the money will have to be placed into special revenue funds, and on the back end, that they will be reporting to the state and reporting to the public on a statewide website. It's designed so that there will be a statewide committee. If any changes need to be made in the future, that can be addressed there. And I'm happy to take any questions if you'd like.
Is it too early to put a dollar figure on it for Forsyth County?
It's too early to put a precise dollar figure on it. So this is a two-step process. This is the allocation. So of course you need something to allocate. So that's the National Settlement Agreement. Now I've been told that as we speak in New York City, the attorneys general, national counsel, and the defendants are all getting together trying to reach a deal, and they're very close. Now what that means I can't tell you. So what I've been told is this could be, potentially could be something like $26 million for Forsyth County over 18 years, but I certainly can't guarantee any dollar figure.
Additional comments or questions? Motion to approve by Ted Kaplan. Second by Tanya. What are we voting on? I don't want it to go too far.
We're doing the settlement.
You're voting on the allocation agreement.
The allocation, I kept thinking this was just a discussion, but you want to approve what our county manager just talked about. All right, we have a second from Tanya McDaniel. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
All right. Agenda item 16 is a resolution selecting and authorizing execution of an agreement with Shellco LLC to act as the design builder and to provide design and pre-construction services for the Smith Reynolds Airport new corporate hangars projects. Project cost is $7.5 million. This will trigger the design work to bring back a guaranteed maximum price to be brought back to the board for consideration will be the next steps.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Ted Kaplan. Second by Tanya McDaniel. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item 17 is a resolution authorizing the grant and execution of an easement to Piedmont Natural Gas Company Incorporated to construct and access pipelines and appurtenances on a portion of Forsyth County owned real property located at 1931 Union Cross Road. This will facilitate the TROSA construction project there on the current ARCA site.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Fleming Elamine. Second by Commissioner Tanya McDaniel. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Agenda item 18 is a resolution authorizing the acceptance and installation of donated artwork from the University of North Carolina School of the Arts to be located at Forsyth County-owned property at 741 North Highland Avenue. They have received a grant, and this will allow them to develop that artwork on our facility. And you saw, I believe, in the large conference room, a rendering of that.
Yes, we did. Comments, questions, motion?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Tanya McDaniel, second by Commissioner Ted Kaplan. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
All right. Agenda item 19 is a resolution designating an official to make recommendations to the North Carolina Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission on ABC permit applications. This will designate Chief Deputy Rocky Joyner for that.
Questions? Motion to approve by Commissioner Ted Kaplan. Second by Commissioners Tanya McDaniel and Fleming Elamine. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Item 20 is a resolution approving refunds by the tax assessor to collector in the amount of $2,913.03.
Questions?
Move for approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Richard Linville.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Don Martin. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
All right, you got two reports. You've got the Liquidity Services Operations LLC sold asset report and the quarterly fuel surcharge report for franchise garbage collection services.
Move to receive reports.
Motion to receive reports by Commissioner Richard Linville.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Don Martin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
We do have three added items that came in a little late, but were time sensitive. Item 23 is a resolution awarding a contract to Veristore Systems Incorporated to provide endpoint detection and response services for Forsyth County in an amount that was bid, and the low price bidder was not to exceed $75,023.06.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Fleming Elamine. Second by Commissioner Ted Kaplan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Agenda item 24 is an amendment to the 2020-2021 budget ordinance that appropriates additional low-income energy assistance program supplemental funding in the amount of $285,211.03.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Tanya McDaniel, second by Commissioner Fleming Elamine. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
And the last item, item 25, is a resolution approving a revision to the fiscal year 2020-2021 Juvenile Crime Prevention Council funding plan. You got an associated budget ordinance amendment that appropriates $5,592 that will go to a family services program for trauma assessment and counseling.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Fleming Elamine.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Tanya McDaniel. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries unanimously.
That is all for the formal
And
session.
Commissioners, we're headed for June 3rd. That's when the next meeting will be held. We're going to have a briefing session after we have final comments on the business session. Do we have any comments from anyone before we adjourn?
One comment, please, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead, sir.
Just a thought, that, we've had a lot, we've been fortunate, I think, to have a lot of public hearings on a lot of activity. And I got to thinking our public comment session, folks are waiting on the phone a long time, they're listening on their computer, all that stuff. Would it be a problem if we just had the public comments as kind of first and then start public hearings and things afterwards? And move
I don't
that
see
to
any problem with that.
Kind of
no.
move that
Yeah.
just after the prayer and pledge, and if we have a health report, would that be a hair lip the countryside?
Yeah, I would defer to our clerk to the board, who is the facilitator of all that.
You don't call that passing.
We can do that.
Yeah, there you go, see? All you got to do is ask the person in charge. No offense there, Dudley. Any further comments or?
One question, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
sir.
This is for Gordon specifically. Gordon, this executive order of 13985, can that be used as a principal guide to allocating those rescue funds?
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar. Which order are you talking about?
13985.
I'd have to take a look at that. I'm not sure which,
Okay.
who is that from?
President Biden.
Okay, well, I'll be happy to take a look at it.
Yeah, I sent you a copy of it. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, additional comments? Motion to adjourn for about 5 minutes.
I move.
Motion to adjourn by Don Martin, second by Commissioner Ted Kaplan. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. 5 minutes.